Good morning, students. Today we are going to read chapter number 6 in MV. And the chapter name is Punctuality and Commitment. Punctuality. Punctuality, it means you should do your work on time. Whatever you have committed towards your job or your boss. So, commitment is very important. Punctuality and commitment both are very important in our life because a punctual person who always committed towards his or her job, they get success in their life. If you achieve success, then you have to punctual and committed towards your job. So, student, this story is about George Washington. George Washington, who was the first president of USA, it means United States of America. He was very punctual. He always valued of time and committed towards his job. Let me start. George Washington, the President of United States of America, was always on time. So George Washington, who was the first President of United States of America, he valued of time. He was always punctual on time. And he has committed towards his job. He did not like when people were late. Those people who did not value of time, they did not like that person. ऐसे पर्सन को वो पसंद नहीं करते थे जो टाइम की वैल्यू ना करे. One day, the secretary of George Washington came late to the office. What happened? There was a secretary of George Washington. So one day he was late for his office. The president asked his secretary, "Why are you late today?" To this, the secretary offered an excuse and hurriedly replied. So one day, what happened when George Washington's secretary was late in office? Then he asked to his secretary, "Why are you late today?" That time, secretary was panicked, and in hurriedly he replied, "Please excuse me, sir. My watch is running late." So he replied, "My watch is running late, so I'm late today." He was not accepting his mistakes, his irresponsibility. He was making excuse. At this, George Washington said, "You will have to change your watch, or I will have to change my secretary." So when secretary made an excuse, then George Washington replied, "You have to change your watch. You should change your watch. Otherwise, I will change my secretary." Why? Because George Washington was very punctual. I had read the anecdote in a children's magazine. Anecdote, it means a short interesting story which is related to a real incident, which was about a real incident or a person. That is called anecdote. So George Washington said to his secretary, I had read this anecdote in a children's magazine. I felt the president was too harsh with his secretary. I. Who is I here? Speaker. A speaker who is telling this story. So a speaker felt the president was too harsh with his secretary. Harsh, it means unpleasant. So here a speaker was thinking president was very unpleasant with his secretary. So unable to keep this to myself, I asked my teacher, Mr. Pinto, for his views on what the president had said. So when I see the president was too harsh with his secretary, then I asked to my teacher, Mr. Pinto, for his views. Views, it means opinion. What opinion his about George Washington's behavior. He was too harsh with his secretary, or he was right? So Mr. Pinto said, I does not speak good that you don't value time and your commitment towards your job and your boss. So if you don't value your time and if you are not committed towards your job or boss, no one valued you, no one likes you. If you don't value time and are late, it clearly shows that you are not dependable. So students, if you are not committed towards your job, and this time what's your job? Your study. Your study is most important job for you. Okay. So when you are not committed towards your study, and if you don't value of time, you are only wasting your time. Okay, you are not doing the study properly, then your parents, your teacher will not like you. Okay, so same here, Mr. Pinto was saying here to me, if you don't value of time and are late, it clearly shows you are not authentic, you are not trustable, not faithful. If you can do it once, then you can do it again. Or if you are not trustable for your job, and if you do make mistakes again and again, then you will follow it, and it is not good. So hence the stern reply of Mr. Washington. Stern, who was the secretary of Mr. Washington, he replied, I argued, but sir, what if the poor fellow is genuine about his problem? Then he was argued. He, it means Washington's secretary. Okay, Washington's secretary told to the Mr. Washington, sir, what if the poor fellow is genuine? अगर poor fellow genuine है, so what about his problem? तो उनकी problem का क्या? Okay students, so today we will read till here. We will continue our chapter in next class. So till now you will read this chapter.